Hey y'all, this is Marley K. Hope everybody is doing well. Got something that I want to share with you today. It is about Sabbath. It is very important. It is from the Project 2025 PDF that I talked about a couple of weeks ago, maybe a month now. Time has flown so fast. But, I told you I was going to go through it because I wanted to talk about some of the things that may impact African American Black people. But there's also something that will impact anyone who's an Israelite or the Gentiles who will cleave unto us. And we need to talk about it. So this is about Sabbath rest. And so for the last couple of years, we've been talking about Sabbath and the mark. People don't necessarily understand what the mark or the line in the sand is for the Most High. And, first and foremost, it's about obedience, understanding the law, statutes, and commandments. But most importantly, the one way we show the Most High that we belong to Him is when we keep Sabbath. And you have to know how to keep Sabbath properly in order to know that you're keeping the Sabbath. It's the difference between the sheep and the goat. It's the difference between the right hand and the left hand. The right side and left side. In the Bible or the Torah, always talks about the right side, being on the right side of the Most High. When you think of right side, you think of righteousness, holiness, obedience, doing the Most High's will. And when you think about the left-hand side, when you think about all the times that the left was discussed, it was never discussed in a good way. Even, when it comes down to using your left hand to do things in the Bible, that was seen as something bad. So there's a distinct difference between left and right, good and bad, darkness and light. And so when we talk about Sabbath, we don't really discuss it, in my opinion, in its proper terms. And I know there are a lot of people who are, keeping Sabbath every Saturday, like the Adventists, the Protestant church taught us to do. And we don't necessarily keep Sabbath in a way that the Bible and Torah tells us to keep it. And it's kind of very difficult for us to keep it because we don't remember the Hebrew calendar. We don't know it has been erased from our memory since we've been in captivity. The Romans changed the calendar, so we go by this Gregorian, Judeo-Christian whole thing where they've changed times and seasons and the way that we track time. So it's just really difficult right now to try to keep Sabbath without going back to the Old Testament and understanding we're supposed to, use days, count days, and the Most High gave us a way to do that using the sun and the moon. But now I don't even know if we could keep it using the sun and the moon because we got a fake sun, and I don't know what's going on with the moon, but something is happening in the earth. And it's just becoming more difficult to keep account of the time. So Sabbath is going to be really important as this system transitions and we go into this new global order, because a day of rest is going to be tied to climate change, to the climate agenda. And in this Project 2025 PDF, and this is a conservative document, they are addressing Sabbath rest, and they have tied it to the Department of Labor and related agencies. So it's only one page in here, but it's really noteworthy. It's not anything different than I've been telling you about before. So you know that the mark is tied to the no buy, no sell system. And how they're going to determine who's buying and who's selling and who's working and who's resting is by your mobile device, your movement in your home, the Internet of Things. They will have light poles that can track your movements. We all have nanotechnology inside of us that can basically be picked up by those new fluorescent lights that they installed a couple of years ago during the pandemic. So there is so much stuff going on, y'all. I can't even talk about it because I just can't talk about it. But I'm gonna talk about this day of rest because it's really important, and it's tied to the new global order. It's tied to the no buy no sell system coming online. It's tied to the technocracy that has been implemented already, and it's just not fully live yet, but different pieces of the technocracy that will be used to monitor us and how we keep this day of rest is already available. I just want to tell you about it. So this is on page 6. I think it's 622. I'm not exactly sure if this is 622 of this PDF, but I'm on 622. And I'm going to read what it says. I will include a link to this in the description. Again, you need to read this document on your own because it has a lot of information in here that can be useful to know in the event Code 45 is elected. Other thing to keep in mind is that it doesn't matter who is elected. This agenda will be fulfilled, but like I said, if the Democrats or liberals win, the day of rest is going to be an issue. They already have an eco Sabbath plan. If conservatives win, they have Sabbath rest. Both days of rest are not days that the Most High told us to use as the day of rest, and they are both tied to the Catholic Church's declaration of changing, making Sunday Sabbath. So again, to me, no matter what happens, I know we're going to have wars, rumors of wars, pestilence, plagues, economic collapse, total surveillance, whatever. We're going to have to endure a whole lot of stuff. We're going to have to stand for a whole lot of stuff. Everybody's going to have to make their own decisions. And this is the most important decision for believers who are following the law, statutes, and commandments of the Most High. You're going to have to know when the Sabbath is. It is not on Sunday. It is not always on sundown Friday to sundown Saturday. There's a totally different way to know when the Sabbath is, and we're going to have to figure that out. You're going to have to learn how to keep the Sabbath looking at sun and the moon, counting the days, downloading the Hebrew calendar. There are lots of people who have done discussions on keeping the Sabbath looking at the moon, and I've talked about it before, not in a whole lot of detail, but just enough to touch the surface to let you know that a lot of the things that we are doing are not correct, and it is incumbent upon all of us to learn. It's not my job to teach you. I'm telling you because I learned that I was doing it wrong. And now I'm trying to learn how to do it the proper way. But I'm no way under authority. I'm just trying to keep it and observe it as best I can. and learn by going outside, every few days and looking at the moon and see, the moon shape in the sky changing and going from new to full to no moon to new moon. I'm I'm just trying to pay attention and do a better job. And I honestly believe that the Most High will reward us for trying. He knows that we don't know. He knows it's been erased from our memory. He knows what's happening. He's allowed it to happen. The prophets told us it was going to happen. But the prophets also said that the Most High's ways would come back to our memory and we would come back to Him. So, in an effort to demonstrate that we are coming back to Him, when you know better, you're supposed to do better. And so, there's no excuse for us to continue to just, keep Sabbath every Saturday without understanding when the new moon is, and then counting Sabbath, every 7 days, so we know when the proper day of rest is. So it's a lot. It's a totally different way. It's totally confusing because we live in Babylon. We're living in a Babylonian society. They control the time. They control our work. They control everything. But in order for us to stand and show that we're not marked by the beast system, that we are sealed by the ways and words in the spirit of the Most High, we have to get this Sabbath issue down pat, and we have to know it without a shadow of a doubt. And the day is going to come where you have to stand on it. So let's talk about it. What's planned with the Project 2025 agenda? Because we've already covered what the liberals or Democrats want to do. They have Eco Sabbath, and we already discussed that. I've got videos on it, and you can just look through some of my old videos. Go to my homepage, type in Sabbath, or you can do Mark of the Beast, and the videos will come up. All right, so this is the alternative view. So it says, while metrics on the state of American families and civil society are important and useful, monthly statistics. So if they're going to have monthly statistics, that means they're going to be tracking you. Would be a little additional value and could end up causing unnecessary confusion and concern. Funding should be oriented towards improving the timeliness of annual family statistics. So they are going to be tracking families and when you rest, how much family time you use. And that metric is going to be 1 day per week. You're going to be at home with your family. Just to say it that way. Okay. So Sabbath rest. God ordained the Sabbath as a day of rest, and until very recently, the Judeo-Christian tradition sought to honor that mandate. And notice they said it's a Judeo-Christian Christian tradition, but it was really a Hebrew tradition. Sought to honor the mandate, and so they call it a mandate. So you see how they are kind of glossing over the history of Sabbath. So this is why it's this is a dangerous time for all of us right now, because if you don't know history, if you don't read your own word, if you don't understand how we were conquered and what has happened to us, you won't know that any of this stuff is goobity-gop. You will just believe what they tell you and assume that your government is good, they're telling the truth, they have your best interest at heart, and this is a good thing. They are leading people to slaughter. They are making goats out of lots of people who have the prospects to be sheep, but they won't read. They will follow anybody. They trust Pharaoh instead of the Most High. And, when you have them controlling what types of information gets out to people, they are erasing Sabbath. If you do, search on Sabbath, you can't find hardly anything about, its origins and who it belongs to. So it's a very dangerous time. This is why it's very important for you to read, consume, and share this information as best you can, as often as you can, because, once the internet goes down and they clean everything, detox, put up the stuff that they want to put up, the only people who will be able to tell the truth are the people who the Most High woke up prior to, the total control of the earth. And you are not going to be able to make the right decision if you don't know the truth. So this is why it's very important for us to be spreading truth. And even if people don't listen to us now, there are a lot of Christians who don't want, who believe that they are keeping Sabbath. They don't really understand. The road is going to be narrow, and there are going to be a few people on it because people don't listen, people don't read, and a lot of things are changing. They believe man instead of the spirit of the Most High. And so you could try, but you're not going to be able to save a whole lot of people. But we have to try, and we have to tell everybody the truth. So, here we are. We're starting out with the lies, so you know where we're going. It's all downhill from here. So it says, I'm going to start over. So it says, God ordained the Sabbath as a day of rest, and until very recently, the Judeo-Christian tradition sought to honor the mandate by moral and legal regulation of work on that day. Moreover, a shared day off makes it possible for families and communities to enjoy time off together, rather than as atomized individuals, and provides a healthier cadence for life for everyone. Unfortunately, that communal day of rest has eroded under the pressures of consumerism and secularism, especially for low-income workers. Now, I did not tell y'all how they always target the poor people. They're going to always start with the poor people. They are easy to control because why? They're poor. Why? Because they need money. Why? Because they rely on the government for something, whether it's Social Security, SSI, food stamps, SNAP benefits, TANF, public housing assistance, affordable housing programs, whatever metric they assign to low income worker. They're easy to control because they're poor. And poverty is associated with what? Moolah. So they're tying work and rest, money and rest. Poverty is easy to control. You're not going to necessarily be able to control some of these other people who may be mobile. And you may be able to, but they're going to start with the poor low income worker. Constant theme throughout all this stuff with universal basic income, with lollipops, with you name it. Everything always starts with the poor. So it says Congress should encourage communal rest by amending the Fair Labor Standards Act, which is FLSA, to require that workers be paid and a half paid time and a half for hours worked on Sabbath. That day would default to Sunday. Okay, there it is. Except for employees with a sincere religious observance of a Sabbath at a different time. So Friday from sundown to Saturday sundown. That's the only one they acknowledge here. So it says the obligation would transfer to that period instead. Houses of worship, to the limited extent they may have FLSA covered employees, and employees legally required to operate around the clock, such as hospitals and first responders, would be exempt, as would workers otherwise exempt from overtime. So, what's going to happen is employers are not going to want to pay people time and a half for working on Sunday or Sabbath, which is we could say seventh day, or we could say from sundown Friday to sundown Saturday. And so employers are going to close the doors because they don't want to pay you time and a half. So this is another alternative view they have. So it says, while some conservatives believe that the government should encourage certain religious observance by making it more expensive for employers and consumers to partake in those observances, other conservatives believe that the government's role is to protect the free exercise of religion by eliminating barriers as opposed to erecting them. Whereas imposing overtime rules on the Sabbath would lead to higher cost and limited access to goods and services and reduce work available on the Sabbath, while also incentivizing some people through higher wages to desire to work on Sabbath. The proper role of government in helping to enable individuals to practice their religion is to reduce barriers to work options and to fruitful employer and employee relationships. The result, ample job options that do not require work on Sabbath, so that individuals in roles that sometimes do require Sabbath work are empowered to negotiate directly with their employer to achieve their desired schedule. So I'm going to just tell y'all what this is in a nutshell. This is your no buy, no sell. And because they're discussing consumerism and people's ability to buy and sell goods on Sabbath, which we're not supposed to be doing. But we're not supposed to be doing it on the Most High's declared Sabbath, not man's declared Sabbath. And the other thing is they're controlling the flow of information when it comes to I won't say information. They're controlling the employers, because now you're telling the employers if you're gonna have a business that operates on the seventh day, you have to pay people time and a half if they have to work. So this is gonna force employers either to extend their work days during the week, make longer work days, or it will just change business models. Again, controlling a employer's ability to buy and to sell, because they have to hire people, they have to pay people, they have to calculate how they will have their people to work in order to produce whatever it is they're producing, or whatever, to offer whatever service they're offering, in order to decide how much money they're going to make. So at the end of the day, it is all it's just a very interesting but diabolical plan to implement the no buy no sell system and insert the mark of the beast. And so in this one page, this is on page 589 of this 922 page document, this project 2025 PDF, Sabbath is addressed in here. And so while it's just one page, it concisely tells you what the plan is if a conservative wins. If the liberals win, They're going to do the same thing. It doesn't matter. One is going to do it at the federal level and do it through employers. The other, which is the public-private partnerships, the liberal way, will subvert the federal government and attack your local and state governments. But no matter what, Sabbath is on the menu for the next presidential election. And I don't, we don't know what day it's going to be. With the liberals, they're like it's going to be a day of rest, but we already know it's going to be Sunday, and we already know they've changed the Sabbath because we already talked about that on this channel. So a lot of people don't understand what the mark is. They understand the no buy no sell system piece, but they don't understand what the mark is. The mark is this Sabbath day of rest, Sabbath rest. You got to learn when the Sabbath is so that you do not rest on the wrong day, because that is the sign to the Most High that you belong to Him. Now, I'm going to read one more thing to you before I get off this topic. So this came from an article called Faithfully. It says, when is Sabbath? Project 2025 sparks debate on Sabbath rest law. This article came out on July 23rd, 2024, and it's from Nicola A. McKenzie. So this picture says, Jesus kept the Sabbath every Saturday, Luke 4:16. Notice this is from the New Testament, so I'm not going to get into all that, but make sure you read the Old Testament so you can understand when Sabbath is, because it's not every Saturday. It's very specific about days, because there is no Saturday or Sunday noted in the Bible at all. The days are numbered. On the first day, second day, third day, fourth day, fifth day, sixth day, seventh day, rest. Start over. All right. So it says, when is Sabbath? That's the question I asked in my previous video about Project 2025. As you know, Project 2025 is an ultra-conservative vision for the U.S. under a Republican presidency. Among the project's many controversial policy recommendations is a call for a federal labor law that would compel Americans to observe Sabbath rest on Sundays. Watch that video to learn the reasoning behind Project 2025's proposed Sunday Sabbath. It says, but what I want to focus on in his video is that I posed in the comments on the previous video, which is, when is Sabbath and why is it important? It is a question that has different answers depending on who you ask. And that's the whole thing, confusion. God is not confusion. The Most High is not confusion. Everybody else, man, is confusion. The reason that Sabbath is even being discussed in such a confusing way is because man has muddied the waters, and that's the intention of the adversary. So it says, and I was not expecting so many responses. More than 130 viewers commented with some very interesting replies, some serious and some not so serious. So it says, for example, we got one from a user named Martin Schwartz 7342 who claimed that in the Ten Commandments, the fourth commandment translated into English literally says, remember the Sabbath and keep it holy. Another user identified as Sick wrote that every day is a gift from God and that the U.S. Constitution says make no laws concerning religion. Another viewer, addressing someone else's comment, wrote, not all Christians keep Sunday as it is pagan. SD, Seventh-day Adventist, SD Baptist, Grace Communion International, to name just a few. So as you can see, we're kind of all over the place when it comes to Sabbath. It is supposed to be on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, or it's asking, is it supposed to be on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, all 3 days, any day of the week? Question mark. Well, at its root, the Sabbath is often associated with a day of rest and associated in worship, and varies across different cultures and religions. For many Christians, it's traditionally observed on Sunday. Tradition, let me tell you, tradition is going to take a whole lot of people to hell. Sabbath is on the seventh day. It's the seventh day. You're supposed to rest on the seventh day. And you're supposed to go outside and look at the moon to determine when the Sabbath is. That's how we keep our days. That's how Hebrews kept their days. And that's how the Israelites kept their days. Until they were thrown into captivity, they were forced to convert to Christianity, and they were given the slave Bible, which and a teacher, which taught them totally different from the ways that they originally were taught. And so as time has gone on, we have forgotten and we don't know because our ancestors forgot. So now we're coming back to a place where we're learning and understanding and knowing he's bringing the truth back to his people who are answering the call. And we have the adversary who's still on the scene trying to get as many people as he can to be disobedient and fall once and for all, into the lake of fire with him for being disobedient and not keeping the Sabbath. So that's why it's really important for us to understand the history of Sabbath, when it was changed, who changed it, then understanding how to keep it. What is it really, and how do you keep the true Sabbath? That's incumbent upon you as the individual to do your own research, because you can't be thinking, oh, I'm living righteously, I'm doing ABCD, I'm honoring my father and mother, I'm not coveting my neighbors, I'm not stealing, I'm not lying, but you keeping the wrong Sabbath. Sabbath is how the Most High is going to know who's his and who's not his. So this is why it's important. That's Sabbath is the mark. This is the mark of the beast. Keeping Sunday or whatever day they tell you to keep Sabbath, because whatever day they tell you to keep Sabbath, it ain't going to be the day that the Most High told you to keep it. So, okay. So it says, in Judaism, the Sabbath starts on Friday evening and ends on Saturday evening, a time of rest and reflection. And it has nothing to do with Jesus, because Jesus is not real. Okay, so I skipped something, I'm sorry. So it says, for many Christians, it's traditionally observed on Sundays, commemorating the day of Jesus' resurrection, otherwise known as the Lord's Day. So this is why the Christian church keeps Sunday as Sabbath, but it's really in in memory of the day that the Messiah rose from the grave. It's not the Sabbath. The Sabbath is the day of rest that the Most High gave to the Hebrews and told them to sit down, don't do nothing, don't cook, don't wash, don't make no fires, don't do no work, don't do nothing. Just sit down and reflect and rest and learn, teach, go to temple, come back, rest. Do whatever you got to do the day before or the day after Sabbath, but rest on the seventh day. And the adversary came and changed everything as usual and brought confusion to the game. So it says, in ancient Jewish culture, the Sabbath prohibited work as a day set aside for rest and worship, rooted in the belief that God created the world in 6 days and rested on the seventh, as shown in Genesis. This is also where we get the fourth commandment. The Sabbath played a very important role in ancient Jewish culture, with families gathering for prayer, feasting, and spiritual renewal. But also, we also have to remember during those times, most of the people worked for themselves. They had land, they had fields, so they grew their own food. They, exchanged with each other, sold goods, or, did business with other nations. But they didn't live the way that we live today. Excuse me. And then there were some people who were like indentured servants or slaves, or they worked for other people. They too were allowed to keep their culture and their traditions and keep Sabbath, but as time has gone on, we put in captivity, forced to work for other people, and keep traditions and cultures that were not our own. It's just very difficult to do now. So you actually literally have to take a stand and make a choice to keep Sabbath because it's not the traditional thing to do. And when you do it, you're going to stick out like a sore thumb. So you have to be ready for the pushback. So it says these are just two examples, each with their own deep cultural and religious significance. But did you know that other faiths also have their own Sabbath-like traditions? For example, for Muslims, Friday is a very special day for congregational prayers, and in some cultures, Saturday is already seen as a day for community and family time, minus any religious overtones. So the idea of Sabbath or day of rest is pretty universal. So you see how they are merging and mushing everything up with this article. That's the goal. So it says, so Project 2025 wouldn't be reinventing the wheel. See how they casually just kind of be dismissive about Sabbath or anything when it comes to Sabbath. But the policy playbook obviously favors one religion above all. In this case, Christianity, and that's problematic for a constitution from a constitutional aspect. Now, let me tell you about this article. Editor's note, this article was written with the assistance of AI. So, you remember I was telling y'all about the AGI, how the AGI is going to be God. Well, this article is a perfect example of how AI is going to be used to muddy the waters. This is why it's so important to have your strong convictions when you know the truth. Stand on that truth. That's why it's important for you to memorize it. It is important for you to have it in your heart, and it is super important that you practice it because your mind is a muscle, and you have to train it to remember. You have to train it to do what it is that is considered righteous and holy and keep these observances and all these days that the Most High told us to keep. And Sabbath is super important. So I wanted to just go over this Project 2025 piece on the Sabbath. And I wanted to share this article because both are tied together. You're seeing the muddying or the confusion be solidified in law. It was already solidified. This was not like it's new. But we had done away with blue laws and Sunday laws. They're getting ready to come back on the books. And employers are getting ready to once again be forced to make decisions about Sunday work. And it's going to be tracked. And they pretty much told you this in this article. So this is why you have to gird your loins to take a stand, because this is the line in the sand. This is how you're going to determine if you are marked by the beast or you're going to be sealed by the Most High. That Sabbath issue is is it. And so it's going to be very important for us to learn how to keep Sabbath. When did the Sabbath change? Who changed the Sabbath? Why is it important for us to be obedient to the Most High? Why we have to trust in Him? Because if you keep His Sabbath, He is going to bless you. If you are doing His will, He's going to bless and protect us. If you are following the beast, if you are following and doing what everybody else is doing, if you are lazy and you feel like it's not a big deal, you consider yourself a believer or the follower of the Most High's ways, laws, statutes, and commandments, you're gonna have a problem, and you're gonna have to give an account for it. So, because we know this is going to be the thing that determines who's the Most High's, who sits at the right hand of Him, and who's the adversaries, and who's gonna be on the left side with the goats. It's very important that you pay attention to what's going on in politics. You don't have to engage, but you need to understand Both sides have a plan to address Sabbath and to mislead the whole world. Come out of her, my people. Come out of these different religions. Follow the Torah, because all these different religions are based off of the ways and the cultures and the laws of the Hebrews Torah, and learn what you should be doing on your own. Now, you can use all the assistance and support you need and want to, but you have a limited time, because we only have a few months before this election. I don't know if we're going to have an election. As you can see, World War III is escalating. The economy is steadily moving to de-dollarization and trying to collapse. Inflation is eating us up. The real estate market is about to collapse, the commercial real estate market, and people aren't buying houses, and bunches of houses are sitting on the market. It's about to correct itself. People are being laid off from their jobs. Just a lot of things are happening. Bad things. But then there are other things that are distracting. Concerts, celebrity gossip, football is back. College football is back. The Olympics was just over. We ain't talking about the breakdance challenge and not talking about Sabbath rest. So there are a lot of distracting things happening. And I didn't even talk about the plagues. So we have to really be about our business of keeping up with what's happening, because to me, this is the most important thing that we're going to have to make a decision about. And it's going to impact whether we work or not. It's going to impact how people see us in the community, and you're going to stick out. You're not going to be working on the seventh day. People are going to have something to say about it. Employees going to have something to say about it if you work. So, and you also need to understand you're going to be tracked. So if you go to work and you don't work on Sabbath, you're going to be tracked for not working, and you're going to be tracked because of your choice or your preference of Sabbath. So, it's going to be some weird times or some tough decisions that are going to have to be made, and the persecution is coming. As soon as they institute these things, people are going to begin to be persecuted, and you need to be prepared for that. So this was why it's really important too for you to be self-employed. Everybody need to find a way to not have to be going to work for somebody, so that you can keep your Sabbath when you want and need to, free of surveillance. All right, this is Marley K. Please like this video, share, and subscribe to the channel. Hit that bell notification so that you'll be notified each and every time I upload new content. Follow me on Rumble, Odyssey, Instagram, and on Facebook. The links are in the description. If you'd like to support the channel, you can find the links at the bottom of the description box for my Venmo and my coffee. Any donations that you give are greatly appreciated. Lastly, continue to prep. Continue to pray. Continue to seek the Most High. Seek the Most High on spiritual discernment, on, just what's coming down the pipe, and give you the guidance and wisdom that you will need in order to make the right decisions where Sabbath is concerned, and how to navigate employment as we are still in captivity, and most of us rely on our captors for our daily existence. Keep the Sabbath. Remember it. Keep it. Obey those laws, statutes, and commandments. Learn them. Get into that Old Testament. That's where the meat and potatoes are. And keep up with the laws that are being proposed, because no matter who wins, there is a plan to mark the masses, not just here in America, but all over the globe. And most people who are Catholics and who are Christians in other religions are going to fall for the okie doke. So whatever they do, don't do that. Do what the Most High told you to do. Obedience is how we show our love. and our respect. When you don't care enough to learn, you are saying something about yourself, and you're saying something about your soul. So just make sure you are taking the Sabbath issue seriously and learning as much as you can about it. And don't use Google, because they already done changed stuff. So it's pretty much impossible to find a whole lot of information on who changed it, where it originated. So it is a very complex issue, but there's enough information out here between YouTube and other sources. If you use other search engines, you can find what you need. But this is one of the most important issues that you need to be on top of. And if you're not, it's going to be real problematic for you in the short term and in the long term, because you're going to choose wrong, and then you won't be chosen. When you have the chance to learn and do the right thing, and you refuse to do that, you're going to do what the masses do. And as you can see, the masses are going to go along with this plan. So I'm begging and encouraging you to make sure you pay attention to what's happening with these laws, and understand no matter who wins, Sabbath is going to be on the agenda for the next and probably final administration of Babylon. All right. This is Marley K. Love y'all, and I'm out.